Hello, everybody, and welcome back for my continuation of my book reading of Stephen King's Cell. Hope you're all doing fine, and welcome back. Here we go. Put it away, Natalie, he said. We're going to get moving now. You're double effing right, you are, she said, and brushed an errant lock of her hair out of her eye with the heel of her free hand. She didn't seem to be aware that the young man and younger woman with Clay were holding guns at her. Now, people passing by did look, but their only response was to move past the spot of confrontation and potential bloodshed a little faster. Come on, Clay, Alice said quietly. She put a free hand on his wrist, before someone got shot. They started walking again. Alice walked with her hand on Clay's wrist, almost as if he were her boyfriend. Just a little midnight stroll, Clay thought, although he had no idea of what time it was, and didn't care. His heart was beating hard. Tom walked with him, only until they were around the next curve. He walked backwards, with his gun still out. Clay supposed Tom wanted to be ready to shoot back if Natalie decided to use a little pop gun after all, because shooting back was also how it went, now that the phone service has been interrupted until further notice. In the hours before dawn, walking on Route 102 east of Manchester, they began to hear music, very faint. Christ, Tom said, coming to a stop. That's Baby Elephant Walk. It's what? Alice asked. She sounded amused. A big band instrumental from the age of quarter gas. Les Brown and his band of renown. Someone like that. My mother had a record. Two men pulled even with them and stopped for a blow. They were elderly, but both looked fine and fit, like a couple of recently retired postmen hiking the Cotswolds, Clay thought. Wherever they are. One wore a pack. No day pack either, but the waist-length kind on a frame. The other had a rucksack hanging over his right shoulder. Hung over the left was what looked like a 30. Packsack wiped sweat from his seamed forehead with a forearm and said, Your mama might have a version by Les Brown, son, but more likely it was Don Costa or Henry Mancini. Those were the popular ones. That one, he inclined his head towards the ghostly. Strange, that's Lawrence Welk, and I live and breathe. Lawrence Welk, Tom breathed, almost in awe. Who? Alice asked. Listen to that elephant walk, Clay said, and laughed. He was tired and feeling goofy. It occurred to him that Johnny would love that music. Paxak gave him a glance of passing contempt, then looked back at Tom. That's Lawrence Welk, alright, he said. My eyes aren't half right anymore, but my ears are fine. My wife and I used to watch the show every effing Saturday night. Dodge had a good time too, Rucksack said. It was his only addition to the conversation, and Clay hadn't the slightest idea what it meant. Lawrence Welk and his champagne band, Tom said. Think of it. Lawrence Welk and his champagne music makers, Paxak said. Jesus Christ. Don't forget the Lennon sisters and the lovely Alice Lawn, Tom said. In the distance, the ghostly music changed. That one's Calcutta, Paxak said. He sighed. Well, we'll be getting along. Nice passing the time of day with you. Night, Clay said. Nope, Paxak said. These are our days now. Haven't you noticed? Have a good one, boys. You too, little ma'am. Thank you, the little ma'am, standing between Clay and Tom, said faintly. Paxak started along again. Rucksack felt sturdily in beside him. Around him, a steady parade of bobbing flashlight beams led people deeper into New Hampshire. Then Paxak stopped and looked back for a final word. You don't want to be on the road more than another hour, he said. Find a house or motel unit and get inside. You know about the shoes, right? What about the shoes? Tom asked. Paxak looked at him patiently The way he'd probably look at anyone who couldn't help being a fool. Far down the road, Calcutta, if that's what it was, had given way to a polka. It sounded insane in the foggy drizzle night. And now this old man with a big sack on his back was talking about shoes. When you get inside a place, you put your shoes out on the stoop, Paxak said. The crazy ones won't take them, don't worry about that. And it tells other people the place is taken, and to move along. Find another. Saves. His eyes dropped to the heavy automatic weapon Clay was carrying. Saves accidents. Have there been accidents? Tom asked. Oh yes, Paxak said, with chilling indifference. There's always accidents, people being what they are. But there's plenty of places, so there's no need for you to have one. Just put out your shoes. How do you know that? Alice asked. He gave her a smile that improved his face out of all the measure. But it was hard not to smile at Alice. She was young, and even at 3 in the morning, she was pretty. People talked. I listened. I talked. Sometimes other folks listened. Did you listen? Yes, Alice said. Listening is one of my best things. Then pass it on. Bad enough to have them to contend with. He didn't have to be more specific. Too bad to have accidents among ourselves on top of that. Clay thought of Natalie pointing the 22. He said, You're right, thank you. Tom said, That once. The beer barrel polka, isn't it? That's right, son, Pexek said. Myron Florin on the squeeze box. God rest his soul. You might want to stop in GAITEN. It's a nice little village 2 miles or so up the road. If that's where you're going to stay, Alice asked. Is that where you're going to stay? Alice asked. Oh, me and Rolf might push on a diet further, he said. Why? Because we can, little ma'am. That's all. You have a good day. This time they didn't contradict him, and although the two men had to be pushing 70, they were soon out of sight, following the beam of a single flashlight, which rucksack Rolf held. Lawrence Welk and his champagne music makers, Tom marveled. Baby elephant walk, Clee said, and laughed. Why did Dodge had a good time too? Have a good time though? Alice wanted to know. Because it could, I guess, Tom said, and burst out laughing at his perplexed expression. The music was coming from GAITEN, the nice little village Paxak had recommended as a place to stop. It was not nearly as loud as the AC/DC concert Clay had gone to in Boston as a teenager that had left his ears ringing for days, but it was loud enough to make him think of summer band's concert he attended in South Berwick with his parents. In fact, he had in his mind that they would discover the source of the music on the GAITEN town common. Likely some elderly person, not a phone crazy but disaster addled, who had taken it into his head to serenade the ongoing exodus with easy listening oldies played through a set of battery powered loudspeakers. It was a GAITEN town common, but it was deserted, save for a few people eating either a late supper or an early breakfast by the glow of flashlights and Coleman lanterns. The source of the music was a little farther down the north, or to the north. But then Lawrence Welk had given way to someone blowing a horn so mellow it was soporific. I have no idea what that word means, soporific. I'll have to look that up actually. That's Wynton Marsalis, isn't it? Clay asked. He was ready to call it quits for the night, and although Alice looked done almost to death. Him or Kenny G, Tom said. You know what Kenny G said when he got off the elevator, don't you? No, Clay said, but I'm sure you'll tell me. Man, this place rocks. Clay said, that's so funny. I think my sense of humor just imploded. I don't get it, Alice said. It's not worth explaining, Tom said. Listen, guys, we got to call it a night. I'm about killed. Me too, Alice said. I thought I was in shape from soccer, but I'm really tired. Yeah, Clay agreed. Baby makes three. They had already passed through Gaitan shopping district, and according to the signs, Main Street, which was also Route 102, had now become Academy Avenue. This was no surprise to Clay because the sign on the outskirts of town had proclaimed Gaitan home to historic Gaitan Academy, an institution of which Clay had heard vague rumors. He thought it was one of those New England prep schools for kids who can't quite make it into Exeter or Milton. He supposed the three of them would be back in the land of Burger Kings, muffler repair shops, and chain motels soon enough, but this part of New Hampshire 102 was lined with very nice looking homes. The problem was, there were shoes, sometimes as many as 4 pairs, in front of most of the doors. The foot traffic had thinned considerably as another travelers found shelter for the coming days. But as they passed Academy Grove, Sitco, and approached fieldstone pillars flanking Gaitan Academy's entrance drive, they began to catch up to a trio just ahead. 2 men and a woman, all well into middle age. As these three walked slowly up the sidewalk, they inspected each house for one without shoes placed at the front door. The woman was limping badly, and one of the men had his arm around her waist. Gaitan Academy was on the left, and Clay realized this was where the music, currently a droning, string-laden version of Fly Me to the Moon, was coming from. He noticed 2 other things. One was that the road litter here, torn bags, half-eaten vegetables, gnawed bones, was especially heavy, and that most of it turned in at the gravel, Academy Drive. The other was that 2 people were standing there. One was an old man hunched over a cane, the other was a boy with a battery-powered lantern parked between his shoes. He looked no more than 12 and was dozing against one of the pillars. He was wearing what looked like a school uniform, grey pants, grey sweater, a maroon jacket with a crest on it. As the trio ahead of Clay and his friends drew abreast of the Academy Drive, the old man dressed in a tweed jacket with patches on the elbows spoke to them in a piercing, "I'll be heard all the way to the back of the lecture hall" voice. "Hi there." "Hi," I said. "Won't you come in here? We can offer you shelter, but most importantly, we don't have to anything, mister," the woman said. "I got 4 burst blisters, 2 on each foot, and I can hardly walk." "But there's plenty of room," the old fellow began. The man supported the woman, gave him a look that must have had been unpleasant, because the old fellow stopped. The trio went past the drive and pillars and the sign on old-fashioned iron S-hooks reading, "Gaitan Academy Estate, 1846. A young mind is a lamp in the darkness." The old fellow slumped over his cane again, then saw Clay, Tom, and Alice approaching and straightened up once more. He seemed about to heal them, and apparently decided his lecture hall approach wasn't working. He poked his companion in the ribs with the tip of his cane instead. The boy straightened up with a wild look as behind him, where brick buildings loomed in the dark along the slope of a milled hill, "Fly Me to the Moon" gave way to equally sluggish rendition of something that might once have been, "I get a kick out of you." "Jordan," he said, "your turn. Ask them in." The boy named Jordan blinked at the old man, then looked at the new trio of approaching strangers with gloomy mistrust. Clay thought of the March Hare and the Dormouse in Alice in Wonderland. Maybe that was wrong. Probably it was, but he was very tired. "Oh, there won't be any difference, sir," he said. "They won't come in. Nobody will. We'll try again tomorrow night." I'm sleepy. And Clee knew that, tired or not, they were going to find out what the old man wanted, unless Tom and Alice absolutely refused, that was. Partially because the old man's companion reminded him of Johnny, yes, but mostly because the kid had made up his mind that no one was going to help in this not very brave world. He and the one he called Sir were on their own, because that was just how it went. Only if that were true, pretty soon there wouldn't be anything worth saving. Go on, the old man encouraged him. He prodded Jordan with the tip of his cane again, but not hard. Not painfully. Tell them we can give them shelter. We have plenty of room. But they ought to see it first. Someone needs to see this. If they also say no, we will indeed give up for the night. Alright, sir. The old man smiled, exposing a mouthful of large horse teeth. Thank you, Jordan. The boy walked towards them with absolutely no relish, his dusty shoes scuffling, his shirt tail hanging below the hem of his sweater. He held his lantern in one hand and fizzed faintly. There were dark up all night circles under his eyes, and his hair badly needed washing. Tom? Clee asked. We'll see what he wants, Tom said, because I can see it's what you want, but... Sirs? Pardon me, sirs? 1 second, Tom said to the boy, then turned back to Clay. His face was grave, but it's going to start getting light in an hour, maybe less. So that old man better be right about there being a place for us to stay. Oh, yes sir, Jordan said. He looked like he didn't want to hope and couldn't help it. Lots of places. Hundreds of dorm rooms. Not to mention Cheatham Lodge. Tobias Wolff came last year and stayed here. He gave a lecture on his book, Old School. I read that, Alice said, sounded bemused. The boys who didn't have cell phones have all run off. The ones who did have them, we know about them, Alice said. I'm a scholarship boy. I live in Holloway. I didn't have a cell phone. I had to use the dorm mother's phone whenever I wanted to call home, and the other boys would make fun of me. Looks to me like you got the last laugh here, Jordan, Tom said. Yes, sir, he said dutifully. But in the light of his fizzing lantern, Clee saw no laughter, only hue and weariness. Won't you please come and meet the head? And although he had to be very tired himself, Tom responded with complete politeness, as if they had been standing on a sunny veranda, at their parents' tea, perhaps, instead of on a trash-littered verge of Academy Avenue at 4:15 in the morning. That would be our pleasure, Jordan, he said. And with this, I'm going to stop it here for this book reading. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.